Hi, I'm the creator of the Material Keys module for Foundry Virtual Tabletop, and in this video I will show you how the module works and how you can set it up. So let's first start with connecting the Launchpad to Foundry. So I will just disconnect the Launchpad for a minute. Right now you can see that Foundry is complaining that there's no connection to the MIDI bridge, and so let's open the MIDI bridge. So I'm on a Windows computer, so I just open the executable. And what you can see here is that it looks for the various MIDI inputs and outputs, it displays them, and it starts connecting to Foundry VTT, as you just saw at the top. This is the IP address that the server is running on. You might need to remember that to properly set up the module settings. But right now it's not connected to the Launchpad itself because the Launchpad is not connected. While it's not connected, the app constantly searches for new MIDI devices. So if I insert the USB cable, you can see that it has found new MIDI inputs, it displays them and then connects to the Launchpad Mini. So right now everything is set up. If you ever lose connection, this will also be detected by the app, and you can just easily connect again. And also Foundry is notified when the connection is either opened or lost. So now that we have the Launchpad connected, let's quickly go to the module settings. So first of all, of course, we want to enable the module. The next setting is the brightness, which sets the brightness of the LEDs. So let me just go to a different screen just to demonstrate it. So if we lower the brightness and then save, you can see that the brightness of the keys changes. And at the bottom we have the MIDI bridge address. If you're running the MIDI bridge application on the same computer as you're running your Foundry client, you should be able to get away with filling in localhost and then as a port 3001. If you're not running it on the same computer, you'll need to fill in this IP address and of course also the port. If necessary, you can change the port in the code for the MIDI bridge application, but I think in most cases that's not necessary. With that out of the way, we can move on to the actual functionality of the module. Alright, let's take a look at the first function of the Material Keys module, which is the sound effects function. So you can enter it by pressing this button up here. Right now you can see that nothing is going on because I haven't set it up. So let's quickly go over how to do that. So we go into the module settings and then press the Soundboard configuration button, which opens this screen. So first of all, you want to select the correct playlist, which holds all the sounds that you want to use. So in this case, I've created a playlist called Soundboard. And then we can set up each of the keys. So you can see that the screen has a total of 64 of these boxes, where each of them represents one of the keys on the launchpad. So the top one, called Sound 81, represents this key, so key 81. And you can see that the keys are numbered by row and column, and well, they're numbered this way because of the way that the manufacturer of the launchpad numbered their keys, so I basically copied that. If we take a look at this first box, you can see that we have various options. So first of all, we want to select a sound. So, well, let's select the first one, the fireplace sound. We then have to select or choose what happens when we turn the sound on or off. So either you can have a color change, you can have the key blink, or you can have the key fade. So let's select the color for now. And if we select the color, we have to enter both the on color and the off color. So the off color is the color that the key is when the sound is not playing, and the on color is the color that the key is when the song is playing. So to set the color, you can either fill in a number, but what's easier is to press this button, which then displays all of the available colors on the launchpad. There's two screens like this, and we can switch between them by pressing this button up here. So for the fireplace, for the off color, let's choose this dark orange brownish color, and for the on color, let's select the brighter orange color. Then we go to the playback section. So either it plays the sound once, it repeats the sound, or it will play the sound as long as you hold the button down. Well, let's start with the once playback, and of course at the bottom we have the volume slider, which sets the volume of the sound. So let's quickly save it, and you can see that when I press the button, the color changes from dark to light, and you can hear the sound playing. Well, it's a fairly short sound, only a few seconds, so you can see that once it's done playing, the color switches back to the dark orange like we've set it up. So if you set it to repeat, the sound will play until you stop it. And let's also immediately set the toggle to blink, just to show you what that looks like. So switch it on, and you can see that the key starts blinking, and you'll also notice that it's looping. And let's select the fade and the hold function, and well, you can see that since it's still playing, it was fading, but let's stop it. And now if I hold it, you can see the key is fading and the sound is playing, and if I then stop or release the key, it stops playing. So using this method, you could set up various sounds. So for instance, here we have a light rain one. I wanted to repeat, and let's add some thunder to it. Let's add it here, so we have 3 thunder sounds. All of them we want to play back once. Let's have those ones blink just to indicate that they're playing once, and give them 3 white or grayscale colors. Yep, let's save it and start the rain. And then by pressing these buttons, we can well, get the thunder in this case, and of course you can stop it before the end of the track, or the end of the normal length of the sound. So you could use this to maybe create nice soundscapes. You could, of course, add a fireplace, or maybe like a campfire sound. Another thing you could do is maybe some battle sounds. In this case we have a growl that we can set up, and well, it's a bit soft, so let's increase the volume. It's more like it's still a bit soft. But you can imagine that you could add like combat sounds, maybe swords that hit shields or other swords, or whatever you like. And you can just easily press the corresponding button and get that sound. Alright, so let's take a look at playlist control now. So to enter the playlist control, we press this button. And what we see are, well, basically columns. And each of these columns represents a playlist that you've set up in the module settings. And we'll take a look at that in a minute. So let's open the playlists in Foundry, and well, let's just start a track. And so I've set up this playlist to be Michael Ghelfi's music playlist, and you can see that the first track here has started playing, and of course we can stop it by pressing the button again, and you can basically play multiple playlists or songs like this. You can stop them all by pressing this top button, which indicates whether a playlist is playing or not. And if you set the playlist to shuffle and you then press the top button, a random track will be played. So that's the basics. So right now you can basically start as many playlists as you like. But if we go to the module settings, to playlist configuration, here you can select the playback method. So let's first select one track per playlist, which basically stops the song that was playing previously. You can still start multiple playlists at the same time. If you want to disable that, you go here and select one track in total. And as you can see, only one playlist is then playing at a time. So right now we have 4 playlists selected, as you can see here in the settings. And all of these playlists, they have less than 8 or less than 8 tracks in them. However, if for instance I were to import this tabletop RPG music playlist, which has 15 tracks, you'll notice that suddenly we get these 2 keys that light up. So right now we can see the first 8 tracks of the tabletop RPG music playlist, and of course we can play them. And if we then press this function key again, you can see that we switch to what I call a second page. And you know that you're on the second page because the function key has changed color, and the function keys below it has started blinking instead of fading. So this way you can run through the different pages and, well, start playing tracks in those pages. You can have a total of 4 of these pages, so that means 32 tracks per playlist. Anything more than that and it isn't displayed on the Launchpad. So another nice thing is that if you start playing tracks in Foundry, you'll see that it gets updated. One thing you should know is that in Foundry you can still play multiple tracks at the same time. However, if you then press one of the keys on the Launchpad, it will stop all previously playing tracks and only play the one. That's of course because we've set up the 1 track in total. Alright, so that's the basics of the playlist control. Let's now go into the volume control. So one thing you should know is that even though these 2 keys are lit up because of the playlist control, if you press them you will actually go into the next function. So in this case the third one is the volume control function. So let's start playing a song and go into the playlist control. So at the top here we can see the same 5 playlists that we could see in the playlist control, but in this case one of them is fading, and we can select the playlist by pressing one of these 5 buttons, or 8 if you have 8 playlists enabled. And you can also see that playlists which are currently playing are green. So in this case the 4th playlist is playing, which again is Michael Ghelfi's music playlist. And here you can then see that the first track is playing. So in this case each of the columns represents a track in that playlist. If we take a look at this playlist in Foundry, you can see that the volume is set pretty much halfway, and by pressing these keys you can increase or decrease the volume, and as you can see on the screen the volume is copied into the Foundry playlist screen. And so you can do this with each of the tracks in the playlist. Of course, you can do it for the other playlists. So let's open the Adventure Music Incidental playlist and we can change the volumes. And all the way on the bottom means it's the volume is completely off, and at the top it means the volume is at its maximum. And similar to the playlist control, where you could go through the different tabs, in for the volume control we can do the same thing. So let's go to this the 5th playlist, which was a tabletop RPG music, which had 15 tracks. So right now you're looking at the first 8 tracks in that playlist. As you can see, when I press this button, the 8th track changes volume. Of course, these numbers don't represent the order in the playlist. It is the order as you can see it right here. So pressing the volume function key will send us to the next tab, where we can control the volume of tracks 9 through 16. Alright, that's the basics of the volume control. Let's now take a look at the next function, which is the visual effects function. This function is again separated onto 2 different tabs. In this case there isn't a second key, because it's easy enough to know on which one you are by looking at the color of the key. So this first tab is divided into 3 sections. On the left we have the darkness of the scene. So if I just press some of these buttons, you can see that the darkness in Foundry increases the lower I go, and you can see that the amount of lit keys changes to represent this darkness level. This also works the other way around. So if I change the darkness level over here, you can see that the launchpad follows. All the other functions in the visual effects screen, they are only accessible if you have the FX Master module enabled. Let's take a look at these keys. So with these keys and with these ones, you can change you can set a colored overlay in Foundry. So let's press the red button and you can see that we get a red overlay, and we can do that with each of these colors, and the color that you see represents the color that you get on screen. So next to that we have these 3 columns of keys, and with these we can actually set the RGB value that we will see on screen, so the RGB value of the overlay. So if we go all the way to the top, we basically have a white overlay, so you cannot see that. But if we switch off the red and blue, we'll get a pure green overlay, and of course you can go anywhere in the middle. Pressing one of these 3 keys, so first of all you can see that the color represents the color that you see on screen. So right now I'm expecting a yellowish green color, which you can see on the screen. And pressing these buttons will basically disable the color overlay and push all the sliders back to the maximum position, which indicates a white overlay. So let's now go to the second tab, and here we can see two sections. These keys, they can all switch the FX master weather effects on or off. So let's take a look at these weather effects. So you can see we have autumn leaves, rain, snow, snowstorm, etc. If I press this first button, we will switch off the switch on the autumn leaves effect, as you can see. And if I now reopen the screen, you can see that that it's toggled on. And these keys are ordered as you can see them in this screen, and I've given them a color that kind of represents the effect that, well, that will be switched on or off. You can see that this key is fading, which means that it is switched on. So we could, for example, switch on the rain overlay, and I think this is the snow, and we have the snowstorm. And of course you can have multiple online at the same time if you really wanted to do that. And these bottom three keys, they will switch all of these filters, all of these overlays off. And then here on the right we have these four keys, and they represent these four filters. So if I press the top one, we will get the underwater filter. Pressing the one below that will switch on the predator filter, etc. And again, the filter that's on is fading. So we can switch them all on if we really wanted to, and then by pressing this red key at the bottom, we switch all of the filters off again. Alright, let's now go to the next function, which is the combat tracker. So right now you can see that the top of the launchpad is empty, while we have these three fading sections over here. We need to start filling the initiative order with tokens. So right here I have three different tokens. One has a friendly disposition, one a hostile disposition, and one a neutral disposition. So let's add these three to the combat tracker. And you can see that right here we have three keys that light up, and the colors of these keys correspond with the disposition of the token. So the green one is friendly, red one is hostile, and the yellow one is neutral. And these are ordered horizontally, as you will see them in the combat tracker. What we can do here is select or press one of these keys, and you can see that it selects the corresponding token and pans the canvas to center on that token. Of course we can add more tokens if we like. So in this case we'll have 9 tokens in total, so the first 8 will fill up the top row, and then the next tokens will fill up the second row, all the way up until you have 32 tokens in your combat tracker. If we roll for initiative, you can see that the order corresponds with the new initiative order. And of course, again, we can go through each of these tokens. You can also see that down here, since we've added tokens to the combat tracker, these 6 keys have stopped fading, which means that we can press the key, in this case, to start the combat. Once we start the combat, you can see that the colors of these keys have changed color. So these ones have turned red, these ones have turned green, and you can also see that one of the keys up here has started fading, which indicates which of the tokens turn it currently is. So right now you can see that this hostile token, it's the turn of this hostile token, so this key is fading. We can use these keys to either go to the next combatant in the initiative order or to the previous one. So let's press this one, and you can see that the second key has lit up, and we've moved turns to the second token in the combat tracker, and we can go through the combat like this. You can move through the combat like this, and at some point, of course, combat stops. You can press this button and you'll get the end combat encounter dialog screen. And if you then press yes, everything on the launchpad resets to as it was in the beginning. Alright, so let's go to the next section, which is the token health tracker. So this only works for tokens that are in the initiative order. So let's put these 3 tokens in the initiative order and go to the health tracker. So you can see that again, well, first of all, each of these columns represents 1 token. So we have the friendly token, hostile token, and neutral token, and here again we have the friendly token, hostile token, neutral token, and the amount of keys that are lit up represents how much HP that token has relative to its maximum HP. So if we open up the character sheet of the friendly token, we can see that it has 3 out of 10 hit points, which corresponds to 3 keys being on. If we lower it to 0, you can see that none of the keys are on, and any value in between will change the amount of keys that are on. Of course, this works for all of the tokens that we can see. And if you press one of these keys, you will again select the token and pan the screen to that token. If again we have more than 8 combatants, we get multiple tabs. So up to 4 tabs in this case. You can see right now, because this key is green and this one is blinking, that we are currently on the first tab, and we can go to the second tab by pressing this function key again. And just like with the playlist control and the volume control, you can switch between them like this. Alright, so now let's take a look at the final function of the material keys module, which is the macro function. So we enter it by pressing this key, and what we now have is 64 keys that can each be set to run a specific macro. So for example, here we have a macro called "this is a test," and it's a chat macro, and what it does is, when I execute it, it sends this text to the chat. So let's go to the macro configuration screen, which is very similar to what we saw in the Soundboard's configuration screen. So let's select macro 83. So this represents key 83 up here, and set it to "this is a test." And we can give it a color just like we did with the Soundboard's configuration screen. And then when we save it and we press the button, it runs that macro. If you have the furnace installed, you will also see this text box over here. When you don't have the furnace installed, it will not show up. And with the furnace, you can also input arguments for the macro. So for instance, we have the set aura macro, which uses the token aura module, and it has 3 arguments. So the first one, argument 0, is the color of the aura that you want. Argument 1 is the distance of the aura, and argument 2 is the opacity of the aura. So I've set up a bunch of them, including an unset aura macro, and I've given them all a color to represent the color of the aura that will be produced. And so if I select a token, press one of these buttons, you can see that it will give the tokens the specified aura. And of course you can switch the auras off with the unset aura macro. Another example is this section up here, which all uses the pen macro. So if we take a look at that, you can see we have again 3 arguments. The first one shifts the canvas in the X direction, then the second one in the Y direction, and third one sets the scale, the relative scale in this case. So you can see that I've set these up in order to move the canvas. So these 4 keys move it upright, up, down, left and right, and then these in the corners will allow diagonal movement, and the ones on the right will zoom in and zoom out. Of course you can specify this however you like. And of course you can also have dynamic effects macros. So for instance, we have the visible and invisible macros. So the visible macro is dynamic effects set token visibility token true. So I've set that to macro 82, and the invisible macro to 72. Using this, I can easily make tokens go invisible or visible. thank you for watching this video. I hope you now understand how the module works. If not, feel free to contact me either through my email address or on Discord, and I'll leave the contact details in the description below, and of course also the link to the GitHub page where you can find more information. Okay, bye bye.